My interview guest today is pretty inspirational, I think. She's here to speak to anybody, well, everybody, but particularly people who have been given a chronic disease diagnosis and been told, that's just it. You're just going to have to live with it. That is not necessarily the case. And she is here to tell you how she recovered from ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, and how she proved the doctors wrong. Great. Well, welcome to Alternatively Speaking, once again with me, JJ, otherwise known as the Practical Alchemist. And this is where I like to talk to people about different ways of doing, being, and living. And a lot of it in terms of how we look after our health and take action to become much more healthy than we might otherwise be. And today's guest is no exception, because I have with me Katie Rose Jones, who has a wonderful story to tell. Didn't start off that wonderful, but it is a wonderful story in that she is now perfectly healthy after having experienced ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome. Now, Katie has written a book which is not out yet. We'll talk about that a bit later. And if you do like this kind of content and you want to see more of it, do like, subscribe, and comment. Please let us know what you found interesting or useful about some of the information that we're going to go into in a moment. But Katie, welcome to Alternatively Speaking.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you're very, very welcome. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your story, because you were told when you were diagnosed with ME, chronic fatigue syndrome, that was it, basically. There wasn't much that you could do about it. But you proved everybody wrong, because right now you're looking the picture of health. So tell me a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed when I was 18, and there was just no information given from the doctors. It was just a case of, here's your diagnosis, now go adjust your life to live around it. So that is what I did, and because of everything. So I met some other people that had ME through like Facebook and things, but everyone said the same thing as well, that this is it for life. So to me, that was a story I told myself, that there is no getting better. I've just got to adjust my life to fit these symptoms. But then over the years, the symptoms got worse. It's like every year I developed a new symptom. And I've since learnt that the reason that happened as well was because I was surrounding myself with people with ME. And then they would talk about their symptoms. And I'm like, oh, well, if they're diagnosed with ME, I don't have that symptom. So then my mind unconsciously has gone, okay, we need this symptom too to prove that we have ME. And it's just mind blowing how the mind even works. And I got to a point where I had these tremors and muscle spasms. And this is when everything really got bad. This is when things were the hardest, because I was no longer able to kind of look after my kids. I was struggling with that anyway, but this just was like pushing me over the edge. My husband had to take on a bigger role around the house. And I found it really hard to be around my kids, which then led to the internal thoughts of, oh, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to stay here. I just don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, then I got to a point where I just had a moment, like you do, that knowing. And I remember it so vividly, being in my front room, sitting on the sofa, Walter, my wheelchair next to me. And I felt like, so I wasn't spiritual at the time. Like I believed in something, but I didn't know what it was. And I felt like somebody was standing at the end of my sofa, and it's like all I heard was, you were destined for so much more. And it was like, yeah, which blew my mind, because the other part of my mind is going, I can't do this. I don't know how to function. I don't know if I want to stay here like this. But then when I had that feeling, that knowing, it was like it spoke to every cell in my body. So it was almost like it kind of planted something. I didn't know what at the time, mind, but it was just hope. it was something that I'd been lacking, because at this point I must have been suffering for about 7 years, I think, something like that. And from that moment, I was like, what can I do then? If I am destined for more and I really feel that, what am I supposed to do? How do I get there? It's like I wanted more than this sentence. Like I want give me some bullet points or something to follow. Um, and like the universe does, it provides. And I found myself stalking someone on Facebook because she also suffered with ME, but she started taking these supplements, and I was like, okay, what are these? So I followed her first because I was like, she can try them out, and then I'll do it if it works for her. So that's what I did. They were working for her, so I was like, I'll give that a go. And that was the very start of my journey of saying, do you know what? That belief of I can't be cured, that belief of this is it forever, might not be true, which is again triggering to the body then, because I've lived 7 years of telling myself, this is it. It doesn't get any better. This is just it forever now. So that was jarring within my body, but at the same time, that little seed that was planted outweighed all that, because there was a possibility. And if there's possibility, there might be something more. And at the time, even though it felt like, yes, that I'm going to be better in a way, that definitely didn't solidify in. It was more along the lines of, maybe I could just have some energy, just something so I can be a better mum is all I wanted, really.
Yeah. Well, isn't that wonderful? And it's almost like a cognitive dissonance, isn't it? When
Mm,
somebody tells you one thing like, oh, this is you now for life. And then a little bit along the way, somebody says, no, 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 that's not true at all. You can be. But then because you've told yourself that this is how you've got to be, and
mm,
you've believed in that,
yeah.
it's very difficult for a lot of people to push themselves out of that conditioning and say, no, hang on a second. Oh, no, no, right, okay, okay.
Yeah.
There is light at the end of the tunnel. I can do this. So
Mm.
fantastic. And you'd seen all kinds of specialists and people along the way, hadn't you? But none of them had really helped you greatly in order to get out of this it's not a syndrome, but I mean, it's a whole, you
Mm.
go into in the book, it's a whole host of things going on in the body at one time.
Yeah.
And they all need to be addressed.
Oh,
It's not just a
absolutely.
one, it's not like you can take an antibiotic and there it is gone, right?
Yeah. Oh, if only, eh?
Exactly. So, yeah. So tell us then what that journey was. So you started taking a supplement, which was a nutritional supplement, which is basically just
Dried
dried
fruits and vegetables in a
dried
tablet.
fruit and veg. Yeah, exactly. Which is what a lot of people lack. A lot of us are
Oh,
lacking, and a lot of people think they eat well,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but actually they're not eating well enough. Is the
Yeah,
problem. And again, if you say to somebody who thinks they eat well, or you're not really eating well enough, they'll go, I have a very good diet, thank you very much, but they
yeah,
may still be deficient in
yeah.
many things.
Yeah. I found it fascinating that just taking a couple of tablets every day increased my energy, reduced my pain, and even the tremors and spasms weren't as intense. And I was like, how can that come from just a couple of fruits and veg in a capsule? It was just, but then that's for me, that's triggering in like, why? I need to know why. I need more information. So I actually trained to do a nutritional therapy course, because just purely because I needed more information. I needed teaching. I needed to learn more. And like dairy was one that I found quite fascinating in when I cut it out entirely at one point and my pain just disappeared. And I was like, are you kidding me? Is that all it was?
Yeah,
Like,
that's the other thing. We don't want to give up on something that we enjoy, right?
yes. Yeah, because I was a massive chocoholic as well. Like I would devour a galaxy in no time at all. But now I start eating chocolate and I get to a point, right? That's enough. I like, otherwise I will feel sick. Whereas before I just didn't have that filter because it was what I was always putting into my body. So it just didn't notice anymore that it wasn't, because like the body, it's foreign. Anything that's processed, it's foreign to the body. So it doesn't actually know, your body's not created to deal with that. So it just gets stored and it takes longer to process things. And whereas if you're eating well, as in like whole food, eating things that your body knows how to deal with, then that is being processed normally so that your body can still focus on all the other functions that it's got to do. And I'm like, why are we not taught this? Why?
Yeah, good question. I ask it all the time.
Yeah.
Why are we not taught this? And I mean, it wasn't the case when I was growing up and at school. It's certainly not the case now. I
Mm.
don't think people are taught that at any point. I mean, you have to really teach yourself. You have to go into yourself, unless you decide to go into that particular area as
Yeah.
a job, right? As a
Mm.
profession. So, yeah, no, I think we do need to be taught more. But it wasn't just the nutritional side of things that you learned about and really started working for you. You started to uncover layers of
Mm.
different aspects that would increase your susceptibility to this condition. Do we call it a disease? I'm never sure with these things, whether you call it a condition or a disease.
I think everybody uses different words, to be honest. It's just a label at the end of the
Yeah,
day, though, isn't it?
it is. That's true. And yes, it is. So you found that the nutritional side of things was really helping you,
Hmm.
and you boosted your nutrition intake, and you did
Yeah.
that through supplements, which is a great way of doing it. Because I think, to be honest with you, for a lot of us to get the nutrition we need out of
Mm.
food these days, we'd have to eat a mountain of food
Yeah.
to get what we need to get. And things like the soil isn't as rich in minerals as it used to be, so that's not being passed on into
Mm.
the vegetables that we eat, that sort of thing. So it's something that we should all consider. Right. So nutritionally, you were getting there. You learned
Yeah.
all about that, but there were other things as well, weren't there?
Yeah. So I actually joined the company that sold the nutritional supplements, and you were encouraged to read self-development books. And I was like, what is a self-development book? I'd never heard of such a thing. But I did it because I was like curious. I was like, people are talking like so positively about all these different things. And I was like, I want some of that. So, and it's not like I was doing anything else. I was sitting on the sofa. So, I started reading some books and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And a lot talk about like mindfulness and meditation and things like that. So I'd started that, which really helped when it came to the anxiety side of things that I was suffering with, because I can't even tell you how many times I've been to a school run and had pure fear running through my body because, I had to leave the house. I didn't know if my legs were going to still continue to work while I picked the kids up. And what happens if someone speaks to me? I have to have a conversation with someone, and all these things. So before I've even left the house, I'm in a state. And so learning meditative sort of techniques and breathing, oh my God, breathing. Who would have thought breathing could be so beneficial for you other
I've
than
said
keeping
that
you
many
alive?
times. I've said that so many times. And also, let me just jump in here.
Yeah.
Running, you
Mm,
were an athlete. You
yes.
were you were a runner
Yeah.
and had to give all
I
that up.
I did. I ran for Wales a fair few times in the end. I was number one in Wales at 800 meters. Um, I loved it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved training. I wasn't fussed if I had to go to training. I was fussed if it was a really long run I had to do because I was a middle distance runner. So that was the only time I didn't enjoy something. Um, but I was training like six times a week, occasionally twice a day. And I went from that, and my races were being affected, and I was like, oh, something's going on, and I couldn't understand it. And I kept trying to run over and over and over again. I wouldn't give up. I was like, no. I finally years later accepted it's just never going to happen. And then over the last 2 years, I'd say, I started running again. And I was like, oh my God, it took me so long to let go of that now I'm actually finding resistance to the fact that I can run because I don't work. It's like, do you know, isn't it? It's so annoying that you get that, you
I'm
finally let
sorry, I'm
go of,
laughing, but I
I
mean,
know,
it's just life, right? It's
isn't it?
just incredible. Yeah.
To finally let go of something. And then it's like the universe goes, do you know what? Well done for letting that go. We're going to give it back to you now. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Exactly. So that's fantastic to hear. I mean, who would have thought when you were lying completely, bleh,
Mm.
couldn't do anything, who would have thought that you would have been back to running again? And you were told that you wouldn't be. So, you know,
Yeah.
yeah. So getting back to then the self, I'll say that again, getting
Yeah.
back to the personal development stuff. So you
Yeah.
started reading all these books and that actually grew as well. So you really got into all of that, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah. I found that's when I started that I think I thought I was a positive person. Everyone told me how positive I was because I have a knack of making anything into a joke. And it's how I survived. But then people think, oh, she's okay. She's not that bad. Um, but what I found when I was reading the books was, okay, outwardly, I might be positive. I might look like I'm doing well. But internally, my thoughts did not align with that at all. They were very, very negative and very dark and twisty at some points. But I started using sort of tools and techniques put in some of the books of the simple one of gratitude. Like, that one, I'm like, is it really that simple? But it was.
Yeah.
It was, and that's the thing. We overcomplicate everything. And I think because when you're told this is it for life, you're not going to get better, that when somebody tells you you can get better, you then instantly think, oh, it's going to be really hard. There's no way. I'd have to really work for it if I was going to do that. But actually, no, you just do some simple things every single day and build it up over time. And then it's not so daunting and you're more likely to show up for yourself. But like my positive someday was making a cup of tea because there were days where I couldn't stand up to put the kettle on. So, or standing up to brush my teeth was another one. I was like, well done, Katie. You could actually check yourself out in the mirror today to make sure your hair isn't actually a full-on blown mess. Not that anyone was going to see me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. But it is being grateful. It's such a powerful force. It's so easy. Well, but then you see, I say it's so easy, but
Yeah.
when you've got so much in the way
Yeah.
of being able to do that,
Yeah.
it's not as easy, isn't it? So that you were being led into some other areas that have really helped you break through some of these barriers.
Yeah. I started with yoga because I was bedridden for like about 3 months and I was starting to get better. I'd been for a very rare doctor's visit because the tremors were so bad. I just got to the point I was like, I need to speak to someone. I need to do something. And that was the first doctor that actually listened to me and didn't make me feel like I was making stuff up. And he put me on diazepam and it helped. I had to take it 3 times a day. But I was like, okay. But he was actually the first person to explain something to me that I was like, oh, it's like it planted a seed. I couldn't fully do anything with it because of where I was with everything else. But there was definitely a planting of a seed at that point because he explained to me about messages from the mind being sent to the body. And I was like, well, I know this because biology and I'd done all that at school. So I understood it in that way. He simplified it. He didn't make it into a really big thing where I couldn't absorb the information. He just gave me a very sort of simple explanation of there's messages being sent to your body and they're just like the wiring is wrong, basically. And then he explained about another patient. It was a different thing. It was psoriasis for that patient. But once they went on the diazepam, it helped to, again, it was the stress side of things and the wiring of the mind. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay, I feel like he's listened. He's also given me an explanation to something. So I was more willing to then actually take the tablets because I'm not somebody that likes to take tablets anyway. So I started doing that and then I was getting out of bed at that point. I was able to get around the house a lot more. So then I was like, let's just try some yoga. really simple, short ones, nothing fancy. And I started to feel better, and I learned I was breathing wrong as well. I was breathing back to front. I was like, I didn't know that was possible. Um, so that was a really interesting one because I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm breathing the wrong way?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a really good starting point. Again, developing more on the meditation side. And then I sort of naturally progressed into um, the spiritual side of things. I'd not really dipped my toe in that area before, but I was curious. And I've always been to a medium with my mum. Like we've always been like, ooh, this will be interesting. Let's see if anything comes true. Because I'm a massive skeptic as well, which makes me laugh about what I do now. Because I still find myself skeptical every now and then, like when those sort of negative thoughts start to come in and they take over, and I'm like, oh, I don't know whether I'm making this up. And that was a big thing at the start, feeling like I was making everything up, um, or over exaggerating. And like, I was like, oh. But it was a starting point for me to understand the spirit side of myself. And I became obsessed. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I want to learn everything. So I went into Reiki. That was really good in the way that it was the first thing that my body relaxed. Like my body had forgotten how to relax because of how tense my body would become when I have like the tremors and things. So it was like my body was in a constant state of stress. And even though I thought I was relaxed, I wasn't actually relaxed at all. So I was never in that place to be able to heal. My nervous system was never in that sort of parasympathetic,
Yeah.
that rest and digest area. It just never seemed to reach there. And when I was having the tremors, it was like all of my bodily functions were directed at just keeping me alive. That was the only goal, to the point
Yes.
where
Yeah.
I actually had a heart rate variability test done. I did mitochondrial therapy as well. And they did a view on my heart because they were concerned with how high my heart rate was. And it came back, and half of it, or it looked like half of it. I'm not going to say the specific, it was 50%, but it looked like it. Was red, and it wasn't supposed to be. It's supposed to all be green. And they told me I'd be lucky if that heart lasted 5 to 10 years if it kept going the way it was going.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, me being me, I was like, oh, like that was my answer. Like I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know how to react. I was just like, okay.
It's weird how we react when we get news like that, isn't it? I
Oh,
mean, when somebody
yeah.
tells you something really deeply concerning and you just go, oh, right, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because you
Okay.
don't know, you don't, yes, thanks. Thanks for telling me. Because you don't know how to react, really, do you?
No.
It's so deep. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just too much for my body to process, my mind to process. So it's easier just to ignore it.
Yeah.
Um, but luckily for me, though, I was doing the mitochondrial therapy, and they changed the way that I was taking certain supplements, but also we put in beta blockers as well to help with the heart side of stuff. And when I went back for testing a couple months later, it was nearly all green. And I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
relief. I didn't realize how much it had affected me because I had to keep telling myself, no, you're going to be fine. Don't worry. It's going to be, don't, why are you stressing? But unconsciously, I'm like in the background the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, wasn't that great, though, that you were able to use a combination of things and actually get that
Mm.
back on track?
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah. Yes. And so then, beyond that as well. So we've talked about mindfulness, we've talked about yoga. So that's the physical again, but also the physical combined with the breathing and the,
Yeah.
spiritual, and the mindfulness, because, that's all
Yeah.
part of it. But then you also studied NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which is something that I've also done and
Mhm.
am qualified in. And that helped you hugely as well, didn't it?
Oh, massively. It was a game changer. Absolute game changer. So I felt it was quite funny though, because I'd signed up and you had to listen to so many hours of recordings before you went to the actual training. But those recordings, I realized later that it had triggered me because it was going against my belief systems. It was like, that is not what I've been taught. That is not what I know. But when I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. But my mind and the programming that I'm currently living at was like, what is this? This is not what we know. How can we move forwards and learn more about this without causing ourselves issues and distress, because now we don't know what's on the other side of this. And so I didn't actually go to the training the first time round. I cancelled it.
No.
I know, because I was so I flared up. I had really bad symptoms because my mind is like, right, how can we protect her? Because
Yes.
right now everything is chaos. It's not as we know it. So what can we do? So I was saying it like, we're having this conversation. I had no idea what any of this is going on. But the symptoms came out as a way of protecting me, because every symptom, everything we experience is a form of protection in some way or another, which sounds so crazy because it's like, why? Why would tremors be helpful? Why would pain be helpful? But if you sat and actually dissected it and went, right, okay, when I have this pain, what does it give me? Well, it allows me to stop for a start and rest. That's one, because you tend to push and push and push. And then when I'm like, well, when I'm resting, what is it that I can also get from this? Like, why did the pain really present itself? And I found out that it was because I wanted attention from my husband.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you would never have allowed yourself to think that
No.
normally.
Oh, absolutely not. I would have
No.
rolled my eyes at you and been like, absolutely not. Who do you think you are to tell me such a ridiculous thing?
Correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I sit here going, yeah, no, it was me. I did that.
Yeah. And it takes a lot to recognize that and move on from that, actually. So well done, you.
Well, yeah, that's it. It's triggering to find those things out. Also, it's cringing. Like, there's so many things I've recognized about myself where I'm like, ooh, that's really uncomfortable to recognize that.
I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're talking about. It is uncomfortable.
so uncomfortable. But then I have to sit with myself and I become the observer. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I pretend to be a coach or somebody like sitting with me, asking me questions and saying, if you were really honest with yourself, like it's not going to go any further than here. I'm your safe place. What would it actually be? And then I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to be really honest, and then I just let it out. And it's always the first things that are there, not trying to like sugarcoat anything for myself, because that's a natural state as well for me, trying to sugarcoat it for myself, but it's okay. But if you're just taking everything away and you're being really raw and really honest with yourself, what's left? And when I can see it like that, I can feel the discomfort, but I don't stay in it, because then I'm like, okay, we've recognized it. That's good. We've recognized it. Okay, so what can we do different next time? Or what is it that you were looking for? So you can just like, so for the pain, instead of having pain and getting a hug from my husband, I can just go, I want a hug from my husband. Let's not experience the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So you went through a lot of these, really for some people, challenging situations where you had to confront what was going on internally in your system, in your mind and your body. And you were able to resolve those. And so now, I mean, I don't, there's probably other things. I know in your book you talk about, an awakening. So you feel that you've actually woken up, but maybe not entirely in the sense that people who are very spiritual talk about awakening, but awakening nonetheless to what health and good health is really all about.
Yeah. I went down the rabbit hole of the spiritual world of like learning about um the energy systems and
Yeah.
just anything I could. Numerology I found fascinating, angels, like absolutely anything that I could learn, I was in it. I wanted to know it all. And it helped massively in the way of being able to understand me understand other people around me as well. But it was more about me, let's be honest. Again, it was the ego. I'm like, yes, hello. And it was understanding that what I was feeling was there for a reason. Like it was like learning a language is how I describe it. And you don't just know it, like you have to learn it, you have to develop it, you have to have awareness and listen to your intuition, that knowing that you have. But if you're a people pleaser, that is really hard to listen to your inner voice because it is so overshadowed by other people and what they think. And you don't even know your own beliefs at that point because you're just trying to please everybody else. And I was a chronic people pleaser. So that was really hard for me to kind of peel those layers away because, again, it's the discomfort, but it's more the identity crisis of, okay, if I don't have this illness, then who actually am I? And I got stuck in the sort of fear for 2 years because I kept having those thoughts of, well, if I'm not ill, then what do I do? And because I still had the belief that if I overdo it, I would be poorly. So then it's, well, I can't be successful then. So it doesn't matter what I'm going to try. I can only get to a point. And, you have to recognize those things and you have to process it all eventually. 2 years, but I got there. But it was the learning of the mind, the body, the spirit, and how it's all connected. And when I started to dive into trauma and the nervous system, that was like when everything fully clicked. That was when I started to really dive into the trauma and the emotions and all that side of stuff. That it was like the final missing piece. It felt like it was like I've been on this journey collecting all these little puzzle pieces as I've gone. It's helped. I've understood something. It's unlocked something. I'm teaching something. I'm learning something. And then this bit came and I was like, I get it now. And then everything in the way that I saw things, saw people in my life, just completely switched. It was no longer looking at them from my beliefs and how I live my life. It was looking at them from their experiences and going, oh, I can understand where this is coming from because they felt abandoned as a child or, all these different things. And I could finally see even my kids, see them differently as well. And it was like a relief. I think because you keep so much for yourself in like because somebody's acting this way because of you, and I suppose as a people pleaser, you tend to do that quite often. And when you step away and you go, wait a minute, if you just have a look, were they reacting like this before? No. Okay, so they've been triggered. Something's happened and they've been triggered. It could be something that I've said. It can just be a tone. Like it doesn't have to be words. It can just be the way I look at someone. I might trigger somebody. And the way they're reacting is nothing to do with me. It's to do with what is going on inside of them that hasn't been healed. And then I started to take that and then look at myself in that way, which is so much harder. You can see it in other people, so much easier. But when you've got to then turn it and look at yourself and go, what is it within me that I need to look at? Why did that affect me this way? What was it that was really going on there? And it's not, again, it's not easy. It's just very hard sometimes to be able to say, like, I feel this way, I feel that way. Somebody made me feel this way because of in childhood somebody else made me feel this way, but I'm just carrying it through my whole life instead of going, no, it's not. Just breathe, Katie, take a second, step out,
let it go.
That isn't it. Mm-hmm. So it's been a journey.
It has been a journey. It's been a rather wonderful journey though, and it's fantastic that you have taken responsibility for your well-being, and you've got to a place now where you're even running again, for heaven's sake. I mean, that's just extraordinary. Well, I say it's extraordinary, of course it's not. It's just unusual in that many people would not take the time or be invested enough to get to that place. I do wish that more people would, though. I do wish that more people would, and in fact, when your book comes out, when's your book coming out?
On the 5th of July, the ebook will be available, and then it'll be available in paperback on the 19th of July.
19th of July, 2024. So, that is something I think people I would recommend you look out for. I've only seen a copy of the PDF of the book before it goes to print, but it's, I think, great, and I recognize so much of myself in there. But my journey has happened over decades, and yours has happened over 1 decade. I mean, a little bit of a difference there. However, it's so pleasing to me to see that you have got to where you are now. Now, if you were to say to somebody what the main learning points or the main points of your recovery were, or what are the main messages that you would want to get out to people right now, what would those be?
I think number one is stop believing what your mind is telling you. I say the lies, like that's how I kind of describe things. I'm like, it's a lie. I have to say it to myself often, just to kind of remind myself that what I used to believe, that was ingrained in me. Like that was 100% the truth. And yet I'm sitting here and it's now like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't 100%, even though I truly believed at the time. So no matter what you seem to tell yourself, it doesn't have to be the truth. And I think the next thing is that you have to take acceptance for yourself. You have to take accountability. You have to want it. And this is why I say take baby steps, because you do hear of some people that can just go fully in and do a whole switch around in like less than a year. Great if you can do that, go ahead and do it. But mine, it took me probably 7 years or so in total from that place of having that moment on the sofa to where I then became symptom free after the NLP. And I'm now 4 years symptom free. So it's about taking your time, not trying to rush anything, don't overcomplicate it, and build the awareness of your thoughts, awareness of your body's language, so that you can really build on what you're trying to tell yourself, not what you think will please this person or that person. For me, I didn't want to tell anyone I was spiritual when I first started, because I was like, oh, they're going to judge me. And that is one of my sort of places where I lived from, is judgment of myself. But I grew up in that space of judgment as well. So it was just that natural state where I'm like, oh, well, everyone's going to judge me. Everyone's going to think I'm woo-woo. Everyone's going to think I'm crazy. All these sort of things. So it took me a long time before I could finally go, do you know what? Yeah, I tried this and I'm proud because I got my life back.
Well done you. And that judgment piece is huge I think for a lot of people. It's been huge in my life as well. And, I had to get over that to do this, actually, because, otherwise I wouldn't be doing it, because I think, oh, people are going to judge me. And, what do I think I know? Why should I be doing this? No, just get over it. In the end, I just thought, nah, I'll just do me. I'm just me. And I love talking to people like you about your fabulous journeys, your fabulous healing journeys, but also that alternative way of looking at healing and well-being and health. It's so important that we ask questions and don't just accept all that we are told. Just question everything, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I wish I'd started sooner, but I wasn't ready. And that's the thing. I think that if you're listening to this, you're probably somebody that is ready. But if you were to then take what you've heard here and try and give it to somebody else that isn't in the same place, it can be triggering to them, and it can also cause a flare up for them, because of that information doesn't compute with what is already a current living state. So there's a delicate balance, isn't it, of just finding what is right for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about finding what's right for you, but also dropping all that conditioning that tells you that X is the only way and you can't go Y.
Yeah.
We're all individual, and X is probably absolutely not the way for you. You probably want to go down a B or a C or even an F or a G route,
isn't it? I tried so many things, but it got me there in the end. Like that's it. You just gotta, I think though, when you're so poorly, you become sick and tired of being sick and tired, that you get to the point where you will literally try anything.
Yeah. Well, and great that you did.
Yeah.
But I get that. And I also would wish that people in the health arena would stop telling people that that's it, or and also giving people kind of, oh, you've got so long to live. I just always think that's such an awful belief to instill into somebody's mind.
That's it, because that's what they're doing. They're installing a belief, and then that person will keep replaying that. It's like when I was told 5 to 10 years on the heart. Well, even though I was trying to tell myself everything other, like, no, you're going to be fine, but really I knew deep down that it was playing out, saying, that's it, you've got 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. And then it's a miracle when it's not. It's a miracle when you recover from that. When actually it's actually very natural. And and understanding that there are so many factors that go into ill health, that go into stopping our bodies from working the way they are built to work. And it's not all just one thing. Mind, body, and spirit, it is all together. Oh, look, it's just fantastic to have you on this show, and I've loved talking to you. I actually loved going through your book. I think it's fantastic. So tell us again what the title of the book is and where people can get a hold of you.
Okay, so it's called Chronically Awesome.
I love that name. I love that title for a book. Yeah.
And it will be available on Amazon when it comes out. And then if you fancy stalking me, like I always do with people, you can find me on social media with Hope Light UK.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Katie. And, I hope that everybody who has listened to this, watched this, will go out and buy your book. Because when I was looking through it, I just thought, yep. Every chapter heading, I was saying, oh, yeah, excellent, yeah. So, not that it means anything, but you've totally got my approval.
Well, thank you. I'm so pleased.
And I think it's great. And anybody watching this, please do go out and check out Katie's book, because I think you will not be disappointed. And again, if you like this kind of content and you want to see more of it, or you don't, maybe you want to see something else, let me know. Like, subscribe, leave a comment so that we know, A, who's watching this, and B, what you want to see in future. And I'll do my best to bring it to you. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And thank you to Katie as well for joining me today. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.